Today we're talking about the Enforcer, which is actually an extremely generic looking mech. However, it's widely beloved, so I'm going to do it for you guys. Now, the CGL model doesn't have a lot of particularly distinguishing features about it, so today we're going to do a paint job and we're going to dig a little deeper to find what makes this sculpt special. So here we have our Enforcer, and I think today what we're going to do is we're going to do a special kind of camouflage. Normally I don't do camouflage, particularly realistic camouflage, and I've had a whim to do a Desert Storm, Iraqi Freedom type camouflage. So we're gonna whip up some tan, we're gonna throw it all over it and make a base coat of it. Now, as you'll see here in a few minutes, this is gonna be that kind that's got the brown stripe and a good amount of black speckling and a tad of white speckling on it. And we're going to mix it with a little bit of black accents going forward. For a base coat, I do a basic tan, and I dry brush it with a lighter tan. But it's at this point that I realize one of the most beautiful features about this particular miniature is the placement of the panel lines. And I'm going to try to articulate this right. As you can see, I'm dry brushing it here, but no matter which direction I come from, the paint goes exactly where it needs to be. Now, this might not make sense at first, or just bear with me here, because no matter what direction I come with the brush, the lines are perpendicular at almost every angle. For example, if you look at the arm, the inclination is to start at the shoulder and stroke down to the elbow and down to the muzzle of the barrel. All those lines are perpendicular to the brush stroke, and so rather than the bristles sliding parallel with the panel lines, they go against the actual edges, and this makes for painting and dry brushing this mech in particular very, very easy and very, like, it came out just looking right the first time. This will come out more once we go over it, once we've washed it. Now I'm using a Reichland flesh shade. I should have probably used a more deserty color. If you had an earth shade, that would probably be more ideal for this, but this is what I have on hand, and I don't really care. Per usual, we're just going to slather it all on, and then I'm going to go over this again with a dry brushing. And it's here that you're going to really be able to see what I just described to you really take place. As I begin to dry brush this here, you're going to see just how much those lines pop and how easy it is to, like I was saying before, get the paint where it needs to go. We're going to let that dry, and now that we've got our base coat with its wash all sorted away, we're going to start with some of the details of the actual camouflage. The first thing is to get a appropriately colored speed paint. We're going to get a liner brush, and I'm going to start doing some tiger stripes all throughout the surface of the mech. The speed paint here is well saturated within my brush, so you want to make sure you have plenty on there because you actually want this to go on pretty thick, but you're using the liner in order to keep it isolated in one spot. Normally you would be going over large swaths of area with a speed paint. In this case, you're not. You're just kind of drizzling a line and stroking it across the surface of the mech. The next step is to start doing our black speckling. Now these we're going to apply in clusters, and we're going to load up our liner brush that we've been using, and we're just going to start making little clusters. And we're just going to put them in random places all across the mech. And if you have one of those like crappy witch's broom brushes that you have somewhere where the bristles are just sticking out any which direction, I illustrate that here too. You can get one of those brushes, keep it dry, just dab it inside the paint and just dab it on the mech. Maybe get some of it off on your fingernail or on a towel or something to where there's just enough on the tip of the bristles and you can kind of just peck at it. And finally, once that's done, we're going to get some white. In this case, I'm using a titanium white ink, as per usual. And I'm going to very sparsely start putting some light white dots, again, all across the mech. Focusing on primarily where the paint job is its darkest. So I'm going to hit a couple of those black spots, and I'm going to hit the dark brown. And if you want, you can hit the tan as well, but they're not really going to show up very well there. So you want to put them on the darker points so that they show up and you can actually see them. From here, I'm going to start doing some of the details. Now, I decided I want to try this speed paint metallic just to just to give it some pop. So I'm going to put it in the action of the AC5. I'm going to also do it on the feet, and this is going to hit some of the typical spots like some of the actuators, the jump jets, heat sinks, and things of this nature. Now, as we get along in this, I realize that I don't know that I really like the metallic. You can be the judge, and of course, you can adjust to your preferences if you decide to do something like this. I ended up getting a similar dark gray and going over most of the metallic with this, at least on the guns. It just seemed like a little too much for me. Now, we've already covered one thing that makes this mech unique, and that's those panel lines. We're going to move on to the other one, which is more obvious, and that's going to be these guns. These guns have a lot of fine little details. If you look on this left laser, it's got a lot of outstanding points that kind of protrude from the wrist out to the end of the muzzle. It's good to differentiate these sort of details on cannons, especially on a mech like this that has so few distinguishing features. Now, if you look on the top, you've also got a small laser housing. We're going to hit that too. Don't forget your joints, your actuators, and your heat sinks. Now, while that was drying, in the meantime, I have done my cockpit already. I decided to go with an orange. I didn't want to do something that contrasted too greatly with the overall paint scheme, but something that popped just enough for you to notice it. Here I'm doing my edge highlights, and I'm just going to get a couple of these out of the way. I'm being very stingy with edge highlights on this. The main reason being is because I have multiple colors all throughout the mech, that is to say this dark brown and the tan. What I don't want to do is have to edge highlight where the brown hits an edge. I'm just not going to bother with that. And going back to these guns, you see that they're actually very polygonal, and you can miss actually some of the edges that are blended in. They're very slight angles around the wrists of these guns, you could say. There's a lot of edges you can highlight there. This is where I would bother doing extra highlighting, and it's the legs, the shoulders, and even the head I wouldn't bother too much with, but it's the forearms to the muzzle that I would give special attention to. If you want to do like a lighter gray highlights on the toes, heels, and feet, and other gray portions of the mech, you could do that as well. Additionally, if you look at the cockpit, you'll see that there is this wire frame, for lack of a better term, around this windscreen. It kind of looks like the guard to like a football helmet. I have painted that a darker color as well in order to give it some pop. Think of it like mascara or eyeliner. You want to darken up the edges around your focal point. So instead of the eyes on a woman, you're looking at the cockpit glass of this mech. You want to frame it in with a contrasting color, in this case a darker gray to the tan. Now I figured it only appropriate to do a sandy desert base with this mech. Anything else would be silly, and I've got a ton of this desert sand that I need to find a use for, so I'm going to use some of this today. We give it a tippity tap to get the excess off. It gets a stone, it gets a bush, and I'm going to keep it fairly simple. Now, if you're thinking that was only two kind of unique things about this unit, there's actually a third one, and it's going to be right here at the very end. If you notice, directly in front of the mech is an edge on the base. Now, this is really weird for a Battletech Mini. Normally, your mech is facing directly perpendicular to an edge. Now, to assist with this, in order to let there be no doubt as to which face is your front face on this unit, you can apply these hazard stripes. I have a hazard stripe booster that you can buy, and it provides 12 hazard stripes to apply to your mechs. They go on super easy, they peel very easily. These are weather resistant vinyl. So for a hobby space, they're going to be perfect, and they're going to last a very long time. And they're going to make your mechs look absolutely fantastic on the table. If you like what I've done and you want to see more of it, feel free to reach out to me on my socials and to subscribe. I will, of course, leave that in the description. And if you want to buy some hazard stripes for yourself, you can find those in the links below to my Etsy store or to my personal website. I appreciate you coming by. May the Lord bless you and enrich you in everything that you do, and I will catch you next time.
Journals of